All right, so we are officially live. I cannot see my LinkedIn, but it says that we're live. So let me see. I'm just going to go with it because it says we're live. So we're live here on LinkedIn and we're live on YouTube. So hopefully some folks will show up. And if they don't, they get to watch the recording of this. So a lot of people are working, we understand. So they'll catch this recorded later. Rick Martinez, thank you so much for joining me on LinkedIn Live and on YouTube Live. I'm always excited to have amazing guests on with me so that I can pick your brain and so other people can hear all about the stuff that you do and all of the things that you're giving back to us, healthcare folks specifically, with all of your knowledge. I would love for you to introduce yourself, to share about your background, how you got into healthcare, and then we'll dive into the ghostwriting and the book writing. And I know everyone's excited to hear about that.
Sure. So first of all, you can hear me okay, right, Claudia?
Yes, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Okay, good. Um, yeah, this is my first actual LinkedIn Live. I don't think
Oh,
yeah, I've never, I mean, I've been on YouTube shows and podcasts and whatnot, but when you mentioned LinkedIn Live, I was like, oh, I've never done that before. So I guess I'll,
it's so much fun and it's easy to do. And everyone is always so kind. And I do notice that people usually watch the recording. So it kind of alleviates the pressure of having a big audience when you're live. So
how
go ahead,
funny.
Rick.
All right. Thanks for having me here. This is so cool. And I think we're actually pretty close. You're up near Austin, and I'm down in San Antonio, so
Yeah.
we're practically neighbors here.
Yeah.
I am a healthcare professional. I'm a registered nurse, just to put it real simple. I've been a nurse since night. Well, I'm not going to say when, but let's just say I've been an RN for for quite a while. I went to school originally here. Well, not originally, but I did. I got my college degree, my nursing degree here at Incarnate Word University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, a little over 20-ish years ago, and great profession. There's no doubt. So if any nurses or healthcare providers, period, are listening to this, it's a great profession, and it's full of things that only a lot of times only healthcare providers kind of get or understand. Whether you're bedside or even administrative or even at an executive level, that trajectory, there's things that only we kind of get, and that's okay. Either way, I think that's what every job kind of has. Only if you're in it do you really get it. But either way, was a nurse for quite a while before I was bit by that entrepreneurial bug, and
Mhm.
started a company right before 9/11, about 2001-ish. And the company was unique because, one, I found myself now as an entrepreneur at that time. I didn't know it. And two, I was still a nurse. So what I did basically is I sold myself. I started staffing myself in hospitals directly. And a lot of nurses and healthcare professionals know the world of staffing
Mhm.
because as it's always been, there's not enough of us to go around.
Yeah.
And I used to work for a staffing firm. And once I really kind of grasped the ins and outs of it, I thought I'm gonna try this on my own, and I did. And of course, I'm simplifying this quite a bit, but I basically started staffing myself, and that meant going out and winning a contract. This was a one-person company, and over the course of days, weeks, months, and years, we went from me being the only employee of the company to two to four to 10, and kind of if we just fast forward speed of light to over 600 employees over the
Wow.
over the course of about 10 years. To be clear,
Yeah.
for anybody who's listening, we were the success overnight, 10 years in the making. And but I think, Claudia, the biggest lessons I learned was that you can be a healthcare provider and still be hands-on, if you will, and at the same time jump headfirst into the world of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And there was not just a lot of lessons learned, but a lot of growth that happened.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship, and then I found myself as a healthcare executive. I did end up doing a stint with Joint Commission with JCO, and I know a lot of nurses, and well, pretty much anybody in healthcare knows what JCO is. And I helped pilot a program with JCO, and was an Army nurse, so did a lot of stuff. But that's kind of my healthcare, from bedside nurse to healthcare executive and CEO, in a really, really small nutshell there.
That's really cool because I think a lot of my network here on LinkedIn are healthcare professionals that also have an entrepreneurial spirit, or mindset. And so they not only care about being hands on with patients, but they also want to do other things outside of bedside. And usually that's like having their own business, whether it's coaching or consulting, something like that, something like similar to what you've done, where they become consultants for an accreditation. Is that it's a JACO being Joint Commission? It's to get people accredited, right? Facilities. So were you an auditor or a consultant? Was that a contract? Is that how do others get involved in something like that?
So Joint Commission, they have multiple divisions, and they have most healthcare providers are familiar with the division that goes into hospitals,
Hmm.
traditional hospitals, and you see the gold seal. And those are the auditors go in there and they survey, if you will, the hospital. And
Hmm.
just depending on a very strict set of guidelines, the hospital is then awarded the gold seal, which means it's my words, not theirs. It's safe. It's a place you can leave grandma and you'll be okay, or you're not awarded the gold seal. There's a lot that goes into it. But Joint Commission has multiple divisions, and back in about 2004 or five, they launched a brand new division because the staffing world was exploding. There
Yeah.
there never has been enough nurses, and around that time, there was this just proliferation of staffing firms. Everybody was starting one. I started one, for Christ's sakes. And what happened was there was no standardization of care,
Okay.
of how nurses and providers were being recruited and then being placed by these third party firms into hospitals. So Joint Commission fixed that. What they did is they launched a program that surveyed the agencies.
Mhm.
So I became one of the first, and they went on a national search, and I'm sharing this with the audience not as a look at me, but this is what happened. Um, they went on a national search to build a team of surveyors, their very first group of surveyors, to help build the program. And so I was one of, I believe at the time, five selected
Oh, wow.
nationally. And the five of us, along with Joint Commission in Chicago, we spent a lot of time in Chicago, built out what is it that um, Joint Commission and a hospital needs to look at from a safety angle, so that they know the agency providing them nurses and LPNs, RNs is a safe, qualified company versus a fly by night, quote unquote. And so I was part and parcel with developing those very first standards way back 20 years ago. And then once we came to an agreement at Joint Commission, this is the rule book, if you will. They then sent us out and said, go ye forth now and survey and certify agencies. And so I got to go out and certify and survey some of the biggest healthcare agencies in the country.
Mhm.
Um, the ones who are the biggest travel companies today. Back then, I got to go inside and see the belly of the beast, how it is the internal workings of their firms. And that's what I did specifically. And I did that for a few years. And that was right after 9/11. And then, of course, the Army. You know this, you know part of this, but your audience doesn't. The Army tapped my shoulder and said, you're going to put the uniform on as an Army nurse. So
Wow. Wow. You've done it all. So I could see why you would have so much to write about because you have such a rich life and background, specifically not just in healthcare, right? But in lots of different areas with your different businesses that you launched. Because I know it wasn't just all healthcare and then being part of the Army. So can you tell us? what motivated you to start writing? And you have now a ghostwriting, is it a coaching program, or what is it that you're currently doing for others when it comes to ghostwriting?
In a I guess in a sentence, I ghostwrite books for nonfiction books for professionals. My
Awesome.
last several of my last few clients are successful CEOs, successful
Mhm.
operators, founders who basically wanted to tell their story.
Wow.
They knew and know what they want to say. They just don't know how to say it. So uh, I I extract their story and write their book. So I ghostwrite books for um, variety of people now there's obviously that big gap in, okay, so healthcare army, now writing books.
Mhm.
But my last few clients, I'm under NDAs with them because as a
Sure,
ghostwriter, I don't get credit. I just
sure.
get paid.
Yeah.
Again, in transparency, this is a company I started, but they pay me a fee and I write their book. It takes about 8 months, but through a series of interviews, my last few clients have been memoirs, and memoirs are actually a very sweet spot for me. A lot of nurses will understand this. You become a nurse and then you try and figure out where you want to land. Do I want to go to oncology? Do I want to go to
Mhm.
ER? Do I want to do flight nursing? Do I want to do work in as an educator? Same thing with writing. Everybody, obviously, we know what writing is, but as a
Sure.
ghostwriter, I needed to find where
Mhm.
was home for me. And the home I found was nonfiction specific, true stories, more specific, but even hyper specific are stories of how women, and these are my last few clients, have overcome tremendous obstacles in their life to rise from the ashes and become who they are today. They've just said, I got to tell my story. And so the client I'm working with now, fantastic story. Not necessarily an entrepreneur or CEO. She just endured hell in life and emerged better for it. A better mom, a better woman, a better provider, better everything. And she finally said, I'm telling my story and I want you to write the book. So um, I ghostwrite memoirs for people who have a story that they want to tell. And I'll end with this part. So I'll pass the mic back.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story to tell.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with you. I think that was one of the reasons that I felt so compelled to have you on this live, is because more than ever before, I think it's so important for people to share their story, to stand out from the crowd, right? Because we all do so many different things, and we can have similar gifts and talents and services that we offer the world, but there's only one you, right? So, and
Yes.
what sets you apart from the crowd is really your story. And so now it's important for professionals in healthcare to brand themselves. And one way that I found that people are doing it and is by writing their book. And sometimes they're, educational books, and sometimes they're books like you just mentioned. And so I think that for a healthcare professional that really wants to open up opportunities in speaking engagements, which I know you've done before, speaking engagements and training for corporate America and all of those things, the book is a great way in the door. So, can you give anyone, if they wanted to write a book or have their story written, what would your advice be to them? Like, what are the first steps, and what are things they should be thinking about? What really qualifies them? We know that everyone has a story, but how do we know our story is good enough to tell?
Those are all great questions. And I think the where you ended that, Claudia, with how do we know our story is good enough to tell? I think that's something we face as called imposter syndrome.
Mm,
Everybody's story is worth telling, and we know it because we share how we grew up with our kids. We share, at Thanksgiving, stories about childhood memories about what mom did. So we all
yeah.
have stories, and I think it's and to be very open and candid, I think it's very selfish of us to think it's not worth telling,
Mm,
because it is worth telling. Somebody wants to hear that. Somebody is two steps behind you. Now, if I'm speaking specifically to healthcare providers, nurses, physicians, even, my ex wife's a physician. My whole
mhm,
family is healthcare. They're all physical therapists, physicians, nurses. And I think I'm actually the only one who actually just jumped into entrepreneurship and writing. But if I tailor the response to your questions to healthcare providers, and why is my story, if they're asking, worth telling? It's because we're leaders at our essence. And even if you're a bedside nurse, you are a leader. You're leading a team. You're leading somebody from a state of illness to a state of better health. And it's when we share these experiences and insights that our story really begins to resonate, because it's, even though people are people, the
Yeah.
things that the shoes that we have worn to walk through life are distinct. Leadership, if we think about that word leadership in terms of healthcare providers of all shapes and sizes, it's about vision, about resilience, and decision making under pressure, and all the lessons that we've
Mhm.
learned. And sharing them becomes an invaluable lesson to others. And what
Absolutely.
better way to do it than with a book? Um, when we go to school, the first thing they do is say, "Here's your books." And and then when we're going to your graduate programs, here's you get your books. And and whenever we meet somebody on the street, or you look at any social feed, what's the best book you've read? And books are that powerful. And of course, as a writer, to me, if to a hammer everything is a nail, to a writer everything is a book.
Mhm.
So everything is every story is worth telling. So if I think of that in those terms, to the nurse who's at the bedside, to the executive who's clawed their way to the top, and now they're maybe a CNO or CEO of a hospital, for that matter,
Mhm.
why is their story worth telling? It's because somebody is following your footsteps.
Yeah.
And it's not about making money. It's not about, while it's possible, it's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's not about the New York Times bestseller. It's about leaving your mark on the world
Yeah.
long after you're even gone.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, and leaving a legacy for your children, right? So something that they too can read someday and pass on to their children. Uh, so if a nurse or a CEO wanted to get help from you to write their story, how do they do that? And again, what was like, what are the first few steps? They now know they want to do this. They have a story. They're confident. They got rid of the imposter syndrome, and they're saying, you know what, this is my time. I need to get my story out. So what's the first step that they take?
So they're ready to tell the story. There's a few ways. Of course, if they wanted to, they could reach out to me here on LinkedIn, send me a message. First of all, if they're over the imposter syndrome, then sending a message on LinkedIn is nothing. Uh, Once somebody sends a message, we can begin a dialogue. Of course, there's always, they can go read a book about how to write a book. They can buy a
Mhm.
course about how to write a book. But generally speaking, most people don't have that kind of time. They need
Yeah.
somebody to help them, hand walk them through the process. And
Mhm.
so the simplest thing is, of course, they could reach out to me on LinkedIn. Sign up for my newsletter. It's right there on my link. They don't even have to reach out. My newsletter is all about writing and ghostwriting, and how somebody can tackle the process in a methodical, responsible way that doesn't negatively impact their life, their job, their family. They can literally do this on the side, and I'll show them how.
Okay.
Variety of ways I work with clients is I do the full on process. If somebody listening thinks of their book as the treasure of gold underground, and they know they want that, one of the services I offer, and a lot of ghostwriters do, is I do all the digging. In other words, I do all the heavy lifting and extract that treasure chest so they have their book.
Mm.
Another way to do it is to be coached through it. And I can also do that. And that's basically, they pick up a shovel too, so to speak, and we do
Okay.
it together. It requires more work on their part, but the end result is still that treasure chest called their legacy, their book. So, yeah, but the easiest way is my newsletter is linked directly on my LinkedIn page.
Okay, and we're going to add it in the chat when we're
Perfect.
or underneath,
Yeah.
and including on YouTube. We'll have all your links so they can get a hold of you. Awesome. So my last thing, we still actually still have some time. So um, Rick, if you were going to give a healthcare provider uh, some advice on, not just how to write a book, but just on being themselves and kind of exploring outside the bedside and just really kind of chasing those dreams. One of the things that I love about Rick Martinez is that he's a go-getter, and if you follow him, you're going to just be in awe with the enthusiasm that you have towards life and towards going after your goals and your dreams. And so if you were going to give advice to our healthcare professionals who in the last few years have felt burnt out, a little undervalued, um, what would that advice be?
That's a good one. Because I know that, and to the listeners out there, I still am a shift worker. I still do shifts in the ER today, even though I write full time. I have my hand in the mix just as much as the next RN does. So I'm still in it with you. Let me preface it with that. I would say is this: one day you're going to be dead, and that is fact. There's on the tombstone. There's two numbers. It's the day you were born and the day you leave this earth, and in the middle there's a dash. And I don't know that there's any rah rah quote I can say that this is your time, or uh, fortune favors the bold. All I can do is say that we will all have two numbers and a dash. You, the listener, all of us, myself included, and you, Claudia, we all have the opportunity to do whatever the fuck we want with that dash.
Yeah.
Anything. I chose to make my dash a series of commas. I'm a nurse. I was a soldier. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. I'm a writer. I was a founder. I was an owner of CrossFit gyms. I'm a guy who doesn't comb his hair. Comma, comma, comma. We and you have the opportunity to leave this world as this piece of stone with two numbers and a dash, or leave this world with a legacy. The legacy can be anything you want. So if you're burned out and you're tired and woe is me and how can this guy do this and I'm just here trying to pull my shifts and make my check, shut up, pull your pants up, big boy panties or big girl panties, whatever now. Everybody wears panties now, it seems. And just do something. Take charge, even
Yeah.
if it's something as simple as, I want to hear more from that nurse Rick, so get on my newsletter.
Yeah.
That might be the little bit of spark you need every single day, because I will write to you every day. Promise you. You get on my newsletter, I will write to you every day. I will write to you every day and give you a spark to lift you up and light you up and move you forward.
Yeah, that's so good. We all got to pick up our big girl pants and big boy pants. I'll keep it PG. You know me, Rick. But that's such great advice. I mean, how sad would it be to get to the end of your life and have so much regret, right? So, and
Yeah.
it's never too late, right? To start. And my husband and I always quote something that you quote, and that's "Don't let the old man in." So I'm going to be 50 in just a few days. And it's been it's been a very like I don't know what's going on. And anyone who's turned 50 is probably has felt this way, but you're just like, wow, that's a big number, right? And so we go, I'm not letting the old woman in, and as Rick would say, don't let the old man in. But it's never too late to get started, to get your story written, to get it out there, to make an impact on other people's lives in and out of healthcare. Somebody needs to hear your story. And thank you, Rick, for inspiring people to get their story written. And we're definitely going to put your links on the underneath our video so everybody can get a hold of you. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to do this again, and maybe we could do a deeper dive when we have more time. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Appreciate you.
Oh, Claudia, it's been fun. And I just now saw some of the comments and I'm just like, wow,
Oh yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm inspired.
It's hard to do the stream and then like answer comments, but we definitely got to read those. So, Yvonne says you're so inspiring. Christina says your story can be somebody else's inspiration. Absolutely. Carmi says you have a great story. And yeah, so this is really great. In a world, Yvonne says, in a world where you can become anyone, become the one you really want. Yeah, that's awesome.
Love that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us today on LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. We'll catch you on the next one. Take
See you
care.
guys. Thanks, Claudia.
Bye.